What do you understand by this terminology called cloud out here? Which we can store data. Okay. 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 Hmm. Okay. Okay. Something related to storage. Okay. Something related to storage. You can store your data in multiple places, not on a physical premise or something. Mhm. Okay. Okay. Yes. Anyone else? Anything apart from that definition on storing the data? Now, again, if you just go to Google search, just put this thing in, telling that what is cloud computing out here. It just tells you, or it just gives you a huge technical jargon out here, telling cloud computing is the delivery of computing services, including servers, storages, databases, all these things over the internet, also known as the cloud, is something they normally talk, and there is a lot of technical jargon out here. So let's firstly try to understand this particular basic terminology. Let's try to decode this out, and let's see what do we really understand from this. And in order to do that, I will take the help of a simple diagram out here, and let's understand what exactly this happens out here. Okay, so let's get with this. Let's see. Let's say that you are an MBA graduate. Okay, now you have an idea to develop an application called Ola. Let's take Ola as the example. I'm pretty sure you would have used this particular application, right? So it's a cab booking application. You just go ahead, book the cab, and you can take the cab and all that stuff. Now, what I want you all to imagine is that this is not 2022, but this is, let's say, 1982. Okay, let's turn the clock a little bit back and let's go there. And let's say this is this year called 1982 out here, and you have this idea, but you don't know how to, let's say, get started. So the very first thing that you kind of go ahead and say that is that in order to develop this particular application, you need to write a code for this particular application, isn't it? You need to have a code. When I say code, you need to write this code in any different language like Java or C sharp or whatever it is, a programming language, or I would say you will need a team of developers to get started. So you go ahead and you say, okay, fine, I will hire a team of developers. Let's say you hired 10 developers out here, because you had that particular investment to go for, and you started telling the developers that, you know what, this is the application that I want, and this is how I want you to develop this out and all that stuff. The developer says, okay, great, then we'll get started, not a problem. We have the skill, we'll go and write the code and all these things out. So the developers start writing the code and all these things out. You have the code right now. Now the question is that where should I put this code on? Because if you have to deliver this code to me who wants to use your application, let's say I am the end user, I just want to use your application, I just want to go ahead into my mobile or go ahead into my laptop, say ola.com, and go ahead book my cab and all these things, sir. If you would want to deliver this application to me, you need to place the code somewhere, you need to put the code somewhere, and that's where I bring in one more component into the picture called as a server. This box that you see on my screen, let's call this as a server. So I now have something known as server in place, wherein I can put my code, I can deliver my code to an end user like you, like the entire world. Now, in order to understand what a server really is, very simple, just imagine that server is just like a physical machine which has properties like RAM, storage, memory, and all these things out. Just like what you have in your laptop. Now, when you go to a market and try to purchase a laptop out there, they would ask you for configuration like your storage and all that stuff. Same thing, but magnified into thousands of times. Like my laptop can have a 2 GB RAM, the server can have a 2000 GB RAM. So it's a very big piece of machine that you need to, let's say, have in place in order to, let's say, start hosting your code and all these things out here. So now my question is that I'm in 1982 again, and I want to now purchase the server because I need to purchase the server. There is no other option. Now I cannot just go down to a shop telling that, you know what, I need a server. I cannot do that because this piece of machinery that you see on my screen, it needs to be built out for you. It needs to be configured for you. If it needs to be configured, you need to order this out from a company which manufactures servers. And back in those days, there were very little companies, or very, well, let's say, very few number of companies that used to manufacture all these things up. So I need to place this order, and I need to get this shipped. Again, this is a very huge machinery. It costs you a lot. This the cost basically that is associated to just place the order is a lot, and also the cost that needs to be shipped. You'll have to pay this upfront. You had to, let's say, pay all this cost upfront out there and etc. So fine, I still have the capital. I have a development team who's developing this out. I still have the amount of money that I can go ahead and purchase the server. I did purchase the server. I did purchase the server, and I said, okay, fine, can you deliver it to me tomorrow? They say, no, I'm sorry, I cannot deliver it to you tomorrow. It's a huge machine. I need to, let's say, configure it. I need to ship this out. So it will take somewhere around 60 to 90 days for me to go ahead and send that equipment for you. And in that 60 to 90 days, I still need to pay the salaries to my developers. They're still there. And also the other question that I asked the manufacturer is that, okay, fine, where can I store this out? Can I just store it out in the open? Not really. You need to have a server room for this, which basically has a proper electrification. You need to have your air conditioning and all these rates because these are huge machines. They get really hot. So you need to have a proper server room. You need to have proper electrification and all these things. So what I do is I build myself a server room, something like as big as this, put air conditioners and etc. Also get in a team of maintenance engineers who can maintain these servers, who know how to, let's say, properly maintain these servers and etc. So if you look at the cost that is associated, A, I am paying the cost for the development of my application. So I'm paying for my developers. B, I am buying this server. That is also a cost you need to consider. C, I need to pay for the charges of maintenance out here, including the maintenance engineers, because I need to, let's say, get in all these things out here, etc. So what I do is that at the end of, let's say, 60 to 90 days, I struggle a lot to get one server, place it inside this particular room, and then start developing my application and delivering this application to the end user, to the entire world. You are now able to, let's say, visit to my application, book your cabs, and do all whatnot and all these things. Now, there are two things that we should, let's say, from a business perspective, there are two things that we should really imagine out here. One is your business can really be a hit. Two is your business is not generating a lot of revenue. Meaning, when I say when your business is really, let's say, doing well, there are a lot of people who are willing to come to this particular application, book your cabs and all these things. So, let's say that when you place the order for this server, you said that the capacity that I need would be 100 GB. Just the bare minimal capacity. You said, okay, fine, this is 100 GB. And what you imagined was that there would be around 100 users per a minute visiting to your applications, meaning 100 cab bookings per a minute. Very bare basic. Let's say I'm giving a very rudimentary number out here. Now, in condition A, let's talk about condition A, where a lot of people are actually liking your application and they want to come and, let's say, book the cabs and all these things out. The issue right now is that instead of 100 users per a minute, there are about 1,000 users per a minute, but the capacity that you ordered can only support 100 users per minute out here. Meaning you are now in need of much more capacity in order to, let's say, counter this particular request, right? But you didn't really think about this. You didn't really think about this. Again, now you go back to the manufacturer and tell, you know what, can you give me one more server like the same configuration? Because now my application is, let's say, it's really in demand. I want another capacity right now. The manufacturer again tells you, you know what, it's not readily available. You at least have to give me, let's say, about 1 month to manufacture this, ship it out to you, and all these things. My question to the manufacturer would be like, you know what, in that 1 month, what should I do? Because my business is really taking a hit. I'm taking a loss right now. Manufacturer would simply say, you know what, you should have thought about it earlier. Before you place the order, you should have thought about it. Some spare servers, you should have bought something like that. That is scenario A. I'm also talking about a scenario B, wherein I would now say that capacity ordered same thing, 100 GB. I'm not changing this particular parameter. But instead of 100 users per minute, there are only 10 users per minute that is coming to your application. There are only 10 users per minute who are visiting your application. People are still happy to go ahead onto the road and book an auto directly out there, because they don't really trust your application, or they don't really have an internet connection and all that stuff. In this case, now I have excess capacity. I just need 10 GB. I have 100 GB. But do I only pay for 10 GB? No. I paid for the entire 100 GB out here. I am at loss. A, my business is not making good amount of profit. B, I am now stuck with this particular machine, and I'm also every month the operation cost is something that I'm paying for this, right? Like the electricity bills, the cost for the maintenance engineers and all these things out. I'm also paying this out. So I will have to consider all these costs, and my business can only be said successful if I am able to make some profit even after let's say paying for all these things out. In this case, now I decide that okay, fine, I want to leave this particular business. It's not really, let's say, profiting me out, and I decide to sell the server. Now, unlike a laptop, I cannot just click a photo, put it in OLX, and say, could someone buy this out and all that stuff. No, I cannot do that. It's a very huge machine. I am stuck with this. This is the reason why. Just a second, guys. Can you please go on mute? uh, Anyone who's not on mute, can you please go on mute? I am getting a lot of echo. Thank you. So business is really making, let's say, a lot of loss out here. I cannot even sell this machine because it's a very huge machine that I'm stuck with. So again, back to square one, business is not profitable. In both the cases, the business is not profitable. Now, this model of operation was not helping anyone, neither, let's say, as an end user, me, or a business, no one. It's not helping anyone out there. That's where things kind of changed a little bit, wherein the entire industry said this model is really not helping anyone. And then the thought process started is that why do you as a business have to buy this? Why do you really have to buy this out here? Why can't I, meaning as a cloud provider or as a company, let's say like Microsoft or Amazon or Google, why can't I buy this? Because I now have the capital, I now have the money to go ahead and, let's say, buy this out. So I'll buy it out. And all you need right now is just an internet connection and something called as a subscription with that particular provider. So what I do is, I, as in the cloud provider right now, does I go ahead, buy all these things called as servers, place them into a room called as a data center, place them into a room known as a data center out here. Data center now is nothing but a room that holds a lot of servers, properly electrified, maintained by the company who's buying this, like Microsoft or Amazon or Google. And all I need as a user is a machine, let's say physical or virtual, and I just need a proper internet connection. And the cloud provider is now telling that I will deliver these particular services like storages, like RAM, and all these things out over the internet. All you need is just an internet connection, and I'm good. That's what brings me back to this particular definition, which is just telling that, simply put, cloud computing is a delivery of computing services, including server, storage, databases, networking, over the internet to offer faster, innovation, flexible solutions out here. Meaning, now see, you don't really have to buy the server, neither you have to give the cost to the maintenance engineers, neither you have to wait for 60 to 90 days. Now let's see. Same thing, you went for the cloud, you have the same application right now called Ola. You have this idea, you're developing this cluster of servers, yes. Meaning not just one. Mhm. Correct. Correct. Just not one server. It's too many servers. I'll also show you what is the data center map. Yes. It's a business model that we are actually looking at. So yes. So again, same thing. I'm Ola again. I'm trying to design this particular application. I don't really have to wait for 3 or 4 months for my business to pick up. I can just pay some initial amount to the cloud provider and take services on a rental basis. I'm not paying anything right now. I'm taking services on a rental basis out here. Pay as you go model, yes, kind of. You say pay as you go. It's nothing but a rental services out here that I'm taking. So when I take a rental service, I initially start with around. I'll say, you know what, I want 10 GB per month. If this is not sufficient, I will just ask the cloud provider that, you know what, I am not sufficient to this. Can you scale this up to 100 GB? The cloud provider will now not say that, you know what, I need 3 or 4 months. No, it's just about 3 or 4 minutes what they take to go ahead and scale this up to, let's say, somewhere around 100 GB or 1000 GB probably. Scalability and flexibility is one of the biggest advantages that you get when you get inside or when you go inside something called as cloud computing. Okay. Time is also, yes. Time is also a factor. That's the reason I was saying it's cost saving, 24/7 availability, performance, and also, let's say, it is super fast. The delivery of all these services is like super fast out here. Yes, any questions still here that I can take? Anyone, any questions? Anything that you're not following? Am I too fast, too slow? Is everyone able to follow this up? Anyone, any issues? Mhm. Correct. Demand of, let's say you are a user, you're developing the application with different configurations. Exactly. Just like, I am going purchasing a laptop. My need is different. Your need is different. Same thing, like a business. If you're buying a server, your need can be different, and a different organization can have a different need, based upon which I need to configure things out there. Yes. Anyone, any questions till here? Anyone, anything till here? Anything that I can take till here? And since we are talking about cloud, one thing that I want to, let's say, cover out here before we move forward is the type of cloud models that are really available out there in the market today. And if you look at the slide, there are three things that, or there are three classifications in which you can divide the cloud. It's called public, private, and a hybrid model out here. When I say public, very simple. You are a company called Ola, and you do not want to buy a server. You're just going to a cloud provider like Microsoft Azure or AWS by Amazon Web Services, or GCP, Google Cloud Platform, one of the cloud providers, and telling that, you know what, I want to use your service completely to host my applications, to save my data, and etc. If you're doing that, that would become a public cloud model, wherein you're completely reliant upon, let's say, the cloud provider out there. Then you have a private model. Private model is okay. Just a second. Private model is where you go ahead and buy your own service. I mean, yes, that's private model. I mean, you buy your own server, you maintain your own service. That's a private model that we were talking about. A lot of companies are between the private and the public, which is a hybrid model. Let's say I'm a banking organization like ICICI. I want to store my data in my own server, but I want to store my application in a public cloud. I want to reduce my cost, also not compromising on my security. This is where hybrid model really comes into picture. And the reason that I'm explaining this is because we need to look at things from this model out here when we're doing classes. Is that how do you do some migrations from on premise, or let's say from a physical environment to a cloud environment, and what this model really benefits you and all these things out here. That those were about the three models. Again, I'm just giving a very high overview on what are the three models out here. When we start the classes, we'll talk about these models again in a great detail out here as such. Now, one question that I do have for you all is that, see, we all know that we are here for a course called Azure DevOps, right? So it includes a world called Azure, not AWS. So then why do you choose Azure over any other cloud like AWS or GCP? What was your reason to choose Azure? Anyone? I'm sure you would have Googled a lot before you come to a class out here, right? So both have same function. Again, any cloud provider under the hood is offering the same thing. Like let's say it's simple, like what you are using an Airtel mobile connection. I'm using an Idea mobile connection out here. Price differences, service differences, they remain out there. But under the line, let's say the as an Airtel, I need to offer you calling services, internet services, and all these things. As Idea, I need to do the same thing. Same thing applies to cloud vendors also. As Amazon, I do the same thing. As Azure, I do the same thing. It's the same thing out there. Reliability. See, Amazon offers the same reliability. Azure offers the same. Mhm. Okay. 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 Mhm. Okay. 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 Mhm. Okay. Reliability. Okay. Okay. Good point. Reliability. Yes. Anything else? Anything else that you all considered before coming down this one?
It has more functionalities rather than AWS.
More functionality than AWS. Okay. Okay. Anything else? Okay. So I wouldn't say that Azure has more functionality than AWS or GCP and etc. All the three cloud providers have the same functionalities. The naming convention is different. If I call apples in Azure, I'll call the same service as oranges in AWS out here. Just to give you a very rudimentary example. But the thing here is that if I am someone who's starting my career with a cloud technology, the very first thing that I would, let's say, really consider is which is a little easier to, let's say, get into, and which is a little easier after I get into to survive a little bit, which is a little easier or which is a little bearable. In that case, what really happens out here is that if I would have started a class on AWS, the first topic that I would have started with is Linux, the underlying basics of Linux. Reason being, AWS or GCP, they don't offer a pure GUI, graphical user interface. It's like you're working with a Linux laptop. Microsoft Azure is more like a Windows laptop, which offers something called as a GUI, which makes it a little easier on you to go ahead and start interacting with it. To go ahead and, let's say, start interacting with a particular cloud provider out here. So that's why I said it's a little easy to learn. You don't need a prior experience out here. We start from the very scratch. We try to understand what Azure really is about, and also we go into the intermediate level, the advanced level, and all these things of Azure out there. And also, if you kind of look at this, more than 80% of the Fortune 500 companies are making use of this particular technology. Reason being, it offers a great integration with Office 365 products and also operating systems like Windows and all these things. And also, it does offer, let's say, you to interact with it in Linux and all these things. And also, widely available. When I say widely available, Microsoft today has the longest chain of data centers across the world. When I say data center, nothing but a room wherein you have a cluster of servers, and these are situated all across the world out here, all across the globe out here, which means that they have business around the market, or they have business. So it's around 61 data centers and counting. If I look at today, this is a very old diagram out here again. So it's around 61 data centers that are situated across the globe, connected to each other and delivering these services to you. So that's how, let's say, Microsoft is. And biggest factor out here is the ease to learn. That's the biggest factor that I would say. In terms of delivery of services, any cloud provider is on the same footing. Any cloud provider has the same kind of service model that is available out there. Price differences, yes, there is a little bit of price differences between different cloud providers, but yes, ease to learn. I would say I would give it to, let's say, Azure. You can just go to a UI and start working with UI without having to, let's say, have any kind of a programming knowledge or any kind of let's say, knowledge with, let's say, programming and all these things. And also, if you look at the growth trends, I've just taken this till 2019 out here. Again, I just did not update this sheet. Uh, Again, pre-COVID, post-COVID, if you look at this, if you look at the articles out here, Microsoft has grown over 170% what it was in, let's say, 2019. And also the latest deal with Geo, a company called Geo with Microsoft Azure. They have now new data centers established, and job market is really picking up. So those are a couple of things why you can consider going towards Azure out there again. Again, it comes down to your personal preference. If you are, let's say, someone who wants to go into a bit of open source kind of thing, then you can do AWS. Or if you are someone who's very new to the cloud technology, want to understand what cloud really is, and just want to start with the graphical user interface, you can pick up Azure and all these things out here. Again, this course is just not about Azure, isn't it? We are also here to learn about DevOps. So it's a combination of Azure and DevOps. So it's Azure DevOps out here. So then, what do you really mean by DevOps out here? Then what? It's a methodology. Okay. Okay, to deploy application into a server. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Development and operations. Okay.
Combination of
DevOps,
levels,
development operations. Yes. Yes, go ahead, please.
scripting languages,
Scripting languages. Okay. Okay. Providing okay services for the develop. Correct. Correct. Hmm. Okay. So waterfall methodology. Okay. I'll pick up those points out here. Again, when I really look at DevOps, again, I want to just look at things before DevOps out here. Okay. Just a little before how DevOps was working out here. Combination of development and operations. Yes. A couple of things like that. So, yes. So I have two things out here. One is a source. Source is a developer's laptop. Let's say I'm a developer. I'm writing a code. This becomes now the source. And then a destination. Let's say a server. Now, DevOps is all about how do you take your source, which is the code, and throw it inside this particular destination, which is a server. And how do you make sure that this has a proper life cycle? Software development life cycle. Yes, this has a particular proper life cycle, and this has a particular testing pattern, and also it is reliable in a time bound fashion. This is what DevOps really is, if I want to put it in a technical jargon. Again, let's say before DevOps, you are a developer, you're working day and night on your code, writing a code and all that stuff. And what do you do is, like, let's say again, let's take the example of Ola as my application. So I would say that the deadline for me to deliver this particular application, let's say I give a very simple deadline of about 6 months, that I'm telling my client that, you know what, I'll just give a I mean, I'll just go ahead and develop this application and give it to you in, let's say, about 6 months of period. This is what I want to do out here. So I start with my development. I go ahead, start developing, and I would say, just giving you a very basic number out here. This is not the actual numbers. I'm just, let's say, analyzing things around. Let's say the initial development takes about a month. I, as a developer, go ahead, start writing my code. As a development team, I start writing my code and all these things. After development, I need someone to test this quality of the code. I need to someone to certify that okay fine the code is good or not. That's where I move my code to the next level to testers or QAs, quality analysis, wherein I as a quality analyzer or I as a tester would start using different tools and different technologies in order to go ahead and test this particular code that you as a developer has written. So I'm going ahead testing this out and all these things. And at the end of this testing life cycle, let's say I take around 15 days out here to test this out. At the end of this particular testing life cycle, I identify that there are a few issues in your code. I identify that okay, fine, there are a few bugs, there are a few issues and all that stuff. So what I'll do is I'll come back to my development team and tell you know what, there are a few issues technically called as bugs. I'll tell you know what, these are the issues, please fix this out so that I can take your code to the next level. So I as a developer I again come back, I start working on this particular code, I fix those issues and I said okay fine, these are the issues, I fixed it, now take the code to the next level. So again, let's say I took as a development team another 15 days here to go ahead and fix the issues in the code and etc. I again send this back to my tester in the second iteration. It's the second time I'm sending it out. And now the tester is again testing this out. Let's say this time, let's say 7 days out here to test this code out and all these things out, understanding what are the issues, working on this one and etc. And here itself, if you see, I almost took around 2 months or more than 2 months, okay, 2 months, 15 days and all these things. So let's consider 2.5 months for this entire procedure. And finally, I would now want to move the code after the tester is good with that. I would now want to move the code to the next level, which is the code release. Meaning, I want to go ahead and release the code on top of a server out here so that you, as an end user, can start enjoying this application called Ola. Now, before I release the code, this is where I get in one more team called operations. And even this team needs to certify telling that, okay, fine, your code is good. The code that you're giving to the client, because I, as an operations team, I'm in constant touch with the client. I need to understand whether the code is meeting the quality. And I, as an operations team, I will also start testing this out. The issue here is that I, as a developer, I've already worked here for 1.5 months. I tested my code and etc. Finally, before the code release is coming into picture, operations team is telling the code is not good. Reason being, all these teams are not working together in a synchronous fashion. I, as an operations, I do not know what a developer is doing. I, as a tester, I do not know what a developer really is doing. I, as a developer, I do not know what a QA is doing. How is he testing? What kind of parameters is he using and all these things. I do not know that. It's flowing from one layer to the other, which is increasing the time. And if you see, it's coming from top to bottom out here. We kind of call this as a waterfall model, as you said, where one team doesn't know what the other team is doing. They're not, let's say, really working in let's say, synchronous with each other. So what I want to do here is that I want to make sure to get all these teams, which is the development, which is testing, which is operations, also planning. Before you do all these things, you also plan how to do all these things, right? Everything into a common platform. I want to put them everything into a common platform and make sure they are working with each other without having to go ahead and, let's say, one team completing their entire work, then handing over the team, let's say, that particular work to the other team and all these things. In order to do that, I need a common platform, and that's where DevOps comes into picture. And that's where things like agile methodology of development or software development actually come into picture out here, where the practice of DevOps suggests that, you know what, go ahead, start firstly planning your code by using services in DevOps called boards or Jira if you are coming from an open source platform, which helps you in planning your work accordingly. And then developing your code and not storing your code in your local system, but please store your code in the cloud, wherein services like repository comes into picture. Like Git, exactly. Repository like Git comes into picture out here. And then develop your code and also test your code using something known as pipelines, or you can also say this as continuous integration, CI pipelines, and also release the code using the same thing and monitor this out. This now becomes the entire cycle that you have. So now using this tool out here, I am able to get my developer onto a common ground. Here is where my developer is, wherein the code is getting built, and this is where my tester is coming, this is where my release is coming, and also they are planning together, they are efficiently monitoring it together, operating and all that stuff. In order to have this understanding of this particular tool, which is now called as Azure DevOps, you need a engineer, or you need a person who has the knowledge of this particular tool, and that's where we as a DevOps team come into picture. That's the reason DevOps is development plus operations. You're trying to bridge the gap between a development team and the operations team so that the entire software development lifecycle, SDLC, goes smooth. We call this as SDLC. And for a smoother, efficient, and in a time bound manner of this particular software development and delivery, that's where DevOps engineers are now playing, let's say, a cornerstone out here. And that's the reason if you look at the packages that's being offered out there in the industry, they're like super good. Also, it's I wouldn't say it's alternative to waterfall model. Nowadays a lot of people, I mean, no one is using waterfall model at all. You are implementing DevOps within something called as an agile model out here, agile model of development out here, and etc. So these are just the amount of salaries and all these things out. Again, the hike that you get is super good today, and especially there's a lot of trend towards moving towards Azure DevOps as a product out here as such. So yes, any questions before I move forward? Yes, go ahead, please. So what is the role of DevOps person? The role of a DevOps engineer is, if you look at this one in this particular slide, we if you see this, all these are services that are offered into a tool called Azure DevOps. There's something called Azure boards, there's something called Azure repositories, there is something called pipelines, there is something called test plans, artifacts, and etc. Now all these services together form a tool called DevOps or Azure DevOps, which will help you code, plan, build, test, release everything out. You as a DevOps engineer need to, or let's say is expected to, have an understanding of boards, understand how they work, configure something called as repositories, knowledge of Git, configure something called as pipelines so that you can develop and deliver the code, and also understand how to monitor it out. So the role of a DevOps engineer in a very short way is to bridge the gap between the development and the operations. Not only that, to help them, let's say, deliver the entire code in a very smooth way. So in order to just give you the idea of what DevOps role really is. No, it's a development team who develops. A development team doesn't look into DevOps out there. See, if you're doing a DevOps, if you're doing developer, if you're doing SQL and etc., you are a full stack. It's not, let's say, you're a DevOps engineer. So DevOps team doesn't develop the code. DevOps team helps the development team in order to, let's say, create something called as pipelines, which internally goes ahead and, let's say, develops your code out here and delivers your code out here as such. It doesn't need coding, it needs, yes, scripting, yes, we'll talk about that. But as a DevOps engineer, you are not expected to have the understanding of a code as what .NET is or what Java is and all that stuff. This is something that you're not really expected, or this is something that is not really expected from your job skill.
So
Mhm.
I have question here.
Yes.
Hi, this is Chandni.
Those are the services inside a cloud that is on the offer, like infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Those are services that are offered inside a cloud. So all the clouds offer services like IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. We'll talk about that when we start with the session on what really infrastructure as a service is and all that stuff. Hmm.
Hi, Kiran.
Okay. 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 Operations. Correct. Yes. No. As in when I'm developing my code, I'm also testing the code out there. Yes. Correct. Correct. It's a synchronization out here. It's also called as a testing oriented development. Correct. Everything is happening at the same time out here. The drawbacks of waterfall methodology is that I do not really have a consistency in my code. I do not really know how the code is being tested, how the code is being developed, and also it is not time bound. If I say it's 6 months, the code is getting delivered in, let's say, 8 or 9 months out there, etc. Uh, yes, the synchronization is something that is missing, and also the development strategy that will be a little different out there. Mhm. I wouldn't say different companies as a part of a same company, or can also be a part of a different company. Yes, they can sing. Yes, they can synchronize on this particular platform called yes DevOps. There, not really. It just depends upon the kind of project that you're really working on. So if you say in a company there's only one DevOps, no, not really. It depends upon the project that you're really working on. If your project is really big, you have a lot of developers. You would have a lot of, let's say, development or DevOps teams as well. If your project is a little small, then you can have one or two DevOps engineers who are working together out there. Yes, any more questions here, guys? Yes, as a part of DevOps, yes, these are all the main, let's say, components within, let's say, DevOps. And we are going to, let's say, go ahead into each and every component and explore them in the great detail while we come down to the classes of DevOps out here. Mhm. Azure, again, you can use, let's say, a Linux language in order to communicate with Azure, but you don't really need to know that. It's something known as GUI, graphical user interface. So you get a link called portal.azure.com. You can go to the link and start interacting with, let's say, that particular Azure cloud out there. Okay, so just coming down to what are the things that we're actually going to cover in this particular curriculum? What exactly is going to be the flow out here? Is that we are first going to start with the cloud side of things, not the DevOps out here, because you, as an engineer, as a DevOps engineer, are expected to have a very good knowledge on the cloud. So we are going to start with the very bare basics of the cloud to understand what really cloud is. So the initial first week will be, let's say, kind of foundation class out here to understand what are the basics of the cloud, and also go into the core concepts of Azure, understanding what really Azure services are. And if you are comfortable, and when you are comfortable with this, we would move on to something known as automation, which is a cornerstone of any DevOps engineer's day-to-day activity. As an automation or as a DevOps engineer, you are expected to automate stuff. Meaning, if you are creating something on Azure, can you create it automatically using some scripts? And that's where we learn something called as PowerShell. Again, start from the very scratch of it and go to an intermediate level out here with PowerShell out here. And then we have something called as ARM templates, Azure Resource Manager templates, and something known as Terraforms. You might have heard about Terraforms, Azure Resource Manager templates, and everything. And everything in the left hand side of my screen, these are all products native to Microsoft Azure, or products native to Microsoft, wherein you get something called portal.azure.com, you get PowerShell, you get ARM templates, you get something called Azure DevOps out here. And we are going to start with the basics of cloud, and then we are moving into DevOps using the Azure DevOps technology. The one left side are all Microsoft products. Left side are all Microsoft products. The right side are open source. I'll also come to that. Yes. So, and we are going to do cloud, and then we are going to move into DevOps out here, and the basics of cloud, which we call it the infrastructure part of things. This is going to take around 35 to 40 hours in order to understand what cloud really is and all these things are. And then we are going to move into DevOps, which is going to take about 20 to 25 hours out here. So if you consider that, it's around 65 hours. And the remaining 10 to 15 hours, we are going to look at the open source market in the form of Jenkins, Terraforms, Dockers, and then something called as Kubernetes out here. So this is something that we are going to skates. This is something that we are going to cover. So if I just look at the curriculum out here, this is yes, we do learn admin as a part of Microsoft Azure. Administration is it's in detail. Administrator is in detail. Yes, correct. Because you need to come from either a development background or administrator background if you want to become a DevOps engineer. So since development is not an option for us right now, yes, this is a combination of admin. As in, like you need to understand the administration side of it in order to let's say implement DevOps out here. So that's what we are going to do that, and also the duration. Correct. I'll just come back to your question. Just hold for a minute. I'll just come back to that. So again, the duration here, again, it's this would be around 70 to 75 hours of classes. So it's not 55 to 60. It will be around 70 to 75 hours of classes out here. 1 hour a class, and the batch is going to start on Tuesday. Since 15th August is a holiday out here, we do 16th August, which is Tuesday, 7 to 8 a.m. 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning. That's where the batch is going to start out here. And just to give you an overview, uh, these are the number of hours that we actually drill down, and these are the overview of the topics that we actually cover out here, which includes a project work also. So we also give the code for a project work. We try to let's say divide you all into teams and then try to let's say start with something known as a project work as such out there. So these are the number of hours that we are going to let's say spend on this particular course, and this is going to come somewhere around 70 to 75 hours out there. Like these are the number of hours basically that we go ahead and do this in order to complete. Again, I'm sorry, I would say around 2.5 months, around let's say roughly around 2.5 months out here. That's what the entire course curriculum is going to be around. Uh, mhm. At the end of the course, are we competent enough to write the course? Again, uh, to write an exam, you also need to let's say cover how to let's say answer the questions of that particular exam out here. Along with this course, there's something called Microsoft Learning Paths. So along with this, you'll also have to cover the learning path in order to let's say go ahead and give the certification out here. Yes, definitely. Yes. Any questions still here? Anyone? Any questions still here?
Uh, uh,
Just a second. I'll just go ahead, please. Does someone online have a question?
yes, so like each and every topic, when you cover, like you will cover like interview point of view also.
Yes, we are going to cover what are the questions that are being asked in the interviews, and yes, it's going to be a real time, let's say, basis out here.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Are we going to provide any material? Not really. I wouldn't say don't go for writing a material because, see, as I said, the cloud syllabus is very dynamic. Now, things are getting updated on a very day to day basis. I would give you the documentation links that you can read from. So, you can bookmark those links out here. You can read from that, and that should be sufficient. No, it's a online link out here. You can download it in the form of PDF as well. But it's yes,
Are
you
you
can definitely.
providing real-time tasks also?
I'm sorry, I'm providing what? I'm sorry, can you come again, please?
Real-time tasks like
Real time.
create VM in PowerShell script.
Okay. Yes, we are doing that. Yes, we are doing real time, let's say, process out there, like
Yeah,
creating a VM in PowerShell script or ARM
yeah,
templates or Terraforms and all these things. So yes,
yes.
we do that.
Is scripting or admin level?
It's an administrator level. So at the administrator level, you'll have to understand how do you use this particular script, and also while you're doing DevOps, we need to implement those scripts out there as well.
Okay, for example, I have create a VM. Directly go to
Okay.
Azure portal and create VM and script also using
Hmm.
in
So
PowerShell
okay.
in the real-time analysis.
Mhm. So in a real-time scenario, it's morely scripting. It's more about scripting. If you are, let's say,
Okay.
working in a real-time scenario out here, you would use a script or a template or something like that in order to create your resources out here on the portal.
Are you providing in real-time task also?
Yes, I am. That's what I was telling. I would, and also while doing a project out here, we also go ahead and let's say implement those skills out there.
Okay, thank you.
Hmm. Again, it's initially going to the portal and trying to create resources out there, and then the second level is going down and writing the script, doing a real. So yes, like services, I wouldn't say one particular service. We would need to do the scripting for the services that really exist out there. Yes, sir, you had a question, I had to take that. Yes. Octopus is a continuous deployment tool. It's an open source replacement for Azure DevOps. Jenkins is, yes, I mean, I would say it is a continuous integration tool. Octopus is a continuous deployment tool. So CI and CD, a combination of both. I'm sorry, kind of. I'm sorry. Mhm. Which one? Sorry, the not really. It's
Yeah,
not a transfer of data. It is to
only
build
providing
something.
online classes or offline classes also.
So, can you come again, please?
Only providing online classes or offline also.
It's both. It's a hybrid batch that I have. So as I'm giving an online class to you, there are people offline also who are coming to the batch. Again, each
Okay.
and every class is being recorded. You will get this
Okay.
recording by the afternoon of this. Let's say you are a 7 a.m. batch. You will get a recording at 12 by 12. You can go and download that particular recording out here. And again, you can choose to come offline or online. There is no restriction. You don't then have to
Okay.
inform. You'll get a link every day. You
Okay.
just can attend online or offline. Anything that you prefer, that's up to you.
Okay.
See, Jenkins is like same. It's in that particular flow in build in a something called build. It's a pipeline, but pipeline here doesn't transfer a data. Yeah, not that pipeline, not transferring data. It transforms the data. Transforms the data out here. Yes. Any more questions here, guys? Anyone
Uh,
regarding the course or anything as such?
There are no offline classes.
Okay. One at a time, please.
Yes, like AZ 900 fundamentals, AZ 104 and AZ 400. So these like covers under core concepts of Azure.
Uh, Again, it just depends upon the job role that you're aiming for. For the job role that you are, let's say, looking at, which is Azure DevOps, it is AZ400, the name of the certification. It is Microsoft Azure DevOps Engineer. In order for you to take that particular certification called AZ400, you'll either have to have a certification called AZ104, Azure Administration, or AZ204, Azure Development. You'll have to, let's say, be certified in one of those things, and that's the reason our course is designed also in such a way. First we cover AZ104, the good part of AZ104, and then come down to AZ400. in order to, let's say, train you into Azure DevOps engineering out here.
So are you going to cover concepts of like AZ 900 and 104 also?
Again, AZ 900 is the basics. So if I cover 104, it eventually covers AZ 900 as well. So
Okay.
900 is like the pretty basic out here. So if you do 104, if you, let's say, understand what 104 is, 900 should be easy to crack.
Okay. Okay. So are you going? So you are going to cover 104 and 400.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Yes, I'll just take a
Sir,
question
please
offline.
give information about the placement, sir.
For placement information, you'll have to reach out to the front office. You'll have to go to the front office and talk about what kind of placement services that you're really looking for out here. Mhm.
Okay, sir.
Okay, not really. Certification is not mandatory. It's a value addition to your
Are
profile.
you covering
Yes.
the Azure AD also?
Just a second, Mohan. I'll just come back to your question. I was just taking one offline. I'll just come back to you in a second. It's a value addition. Certification is a value addition to your career, not mandatory as such. To definitely, yes, the skill is required. You can be hired even if you're not, let's say, certified out here. No, no, no. It's not. It's not. Let's say questionable out here. Yes. Yes, Mohan, you had a question. I can take it now.
Are you cover the Azure AD also? Active Directory.
Azure Active Directory, I'm not going into the very detail of Azure Active Directory. Yes, AD, I'm not going into the
Okay.
very detail of the Active Directory out here.
Basic concepts.
Again, see, if I say I will cover AD, I will cover administration entirely, I'll also cover DevOps, then I won't be able to
Okay.
achieve the target in 75 days out here. The point is here is
Okay.
that I would cover the basics of AD, not the very detail of AD. Reason being,
Okay.
as a DevOps engineer, the target of the course is a DevOps engineer out here. As a DevOps engineer, you are not
Okay.
expected to have a great understanding of Azure Active Directory. But administration,
Okay.
yes, you are. Yes. Yes, those
Okay.
who want to go
Thank
with
you.
that, and that's the reason I was telling that along with the course, you'll also have to do Microsoft certification path if you want to go ahead and crack that particular exam.
Okay.
Yes, any more questions?
Sir, when offline classes are start from, sir?
Uh, Again, online, offline, both start together. Both go together. It is 7 to 8 from the 16th of August.
Kiran, here I have a concern. See, whatever the people talking in offline, we are not listening in online. So there is
I
no
will
sync.
reiterate. I will reiterate the question what they're asking in online, offline, because offline students do not have a mic to ask the question. So whatever questions that they're asking, I'll just reiterate that and then I'll answer that out there for
Okay. So I believe that within 75 days we cannot going to cover this topic because a lot of questions it is not related
you.
to our topic.
Okay.
So
No, I'm pretty sure we'll be able to cover it in 75 days because that's what we've been doing over the last, let's say, 20 batches right now for now. So I have no,
Great.
let's say, doubt in. Yes, I have no doubt in that telling that we'll be covering it in 75.
okay, we are taking online courses. So exactly 1 hour you are taking or more than that?
No, it's exactly 1 hour. It'll be 1 hour out here. 7 to 8 is the batch timing out there. But yes, I mean, if you have questions, definitely I can answer those questions out there as such. Uh, it is going to be from Monday to Friday initially for the basics and all these things. Are. After that, we extend it to, let's say, Saturdays. Also, you need to do assignments on Saturdays and all these things out there. So it's going to be Monday to Friday. That's the class time. And depending upon the need of the hour, we'll also go ahead and extend it on a Saturday or preferably on a Sunday out there. Yes, any more questions here? I'm sorry, can projects, the project work out here. We are doing one project out here. We are doing one. Yes, that will contain all these tools, and it will also help you out to, let's say, apply all your knowledge using these tools out here with this. Correct, correct. Include all these things out here. Yes, yes. It just depends upon, again, it yeah, it just depends upon what kind of a code that you're developing, how the code really integrates out here, and etc. But Azure DevOps can be, let's say, I can say Azure DevOps is a versatile tool that you can use to, let's say, develop for any project or apply for any project as such. Yes, it will. Correct, correct. I'm sorry. I wouldn't say tools. I would say I'm covering something called cloud technology, and there are a lot of services inside cloud technology that we are, let's say, looking at. And when coming to Azure DevOps is itself, let's say, a very big, let's say, technology out here, which has a lot of services. And then if you look at the tools, then it would be Jenkins, Terraform, Dockers, Kubernetes, and Octopus out here. Those are the tools that I would do in the open source. So a combination of Azure and a combination of open sources is what we go ahead and do. At the end of this course, is this skill enough to, let's say, go for a job placement? Definitely yes. I would say a lot of, let's say, students have done that. This particular skill set is good enough to go ahead and, let's say, sit in an interview and all these things out there. Of course, you'll need to do, let's say, some mock interviews and all these things. Yes, and that's the reason we also do have mock interviews out here. We do mock interviews and everything. Yes, kind of. Yes, any more questions here? Yes. Okay. If you are able to follow the classes on a regular basis, and if you are even from a different domain, if you are able to follow the classes, just redo the class. Meaning, let's say the class is for 1 hour. If you're able to take out some time, redo the class, understand the concept, that should be good enough. Okay, regarding the job. Regarding the job purpose, I would say you take it with the front office. Like, just talk about the front, just go to the front office, and just you can have a word with the front office about what is your requirement for the job and etc. And they'll be able to guide you there. Yes, any more questions that I can take? Okay. Yes, so in the initial 1 week out there, there wouldn't be any lot assignments out here. It's basics, but once we start with the core concepts, there'll be a lot of assignments that I'll be giving, and that's it. Yes, correct. Okay, and a lot of people are, put a lot of questions in the chat window. I'm just taking that. Is there only offline classes? Is there online? Yes, there is a hybrid batch. You are free to go ahead and, let's say, attend anything out here. Which laptop do you suggest? MacBook or Windows? Anything is okay. There is nothing like you have to have a MacBook or a Windows out here. Anything is, let's say, super cool with me. Okay, so that's it from my end, guys. So if you don't, I'm sorry, the recording of today. Yes, we'll provide the recording for today as well. Yes, all the 75 as you'll get the recordings out. Okay, thank you guys, and hope to see you all on Tuesday. Thank you.